And let me offer you a very warm welcome here to the Barony Hall at the University of Strathclyde today to celebrate the fantastic achievements of these currently wonderful graduands that are in the hall before us, and the wonderful array of talent here behind us on the stage as well, because over the course of the next 45 minutes or so, they'll be converted to Strathclyde graduates, some of them for the second time, I have to say. And a very, very warm welcome to the mothers, fathers, supporters and friends of those that are graduating today. It's a particular pleasure to have you here to join in the celebrations. Much goes on in this wonderful hall. Of course, we have major banquets and dinners, we have conferences. Some of the students may remember we occasionally have examinations, so maybe the last time you were in here it wasn't such a joyful occasion, but you've certainly succeeded. But the most important thing we do is convene and confer degrees here in the hall. And Strathclyde has become a rather large institution. Annually, we'll graduate around 4,000 to 4,500 students. An army of Strathclyders going out there to change the world, whether it's in humanities, engineering, science and business. And that's the fantastic contribution we make to society. This piece of furniture that's before me, I have to say, has been around the university for many years. I've knelt on this 3 times for my bachelor's, master's and PhD. That's when you had to kneel before the Vice-Chancellor and the Chancellor. We've become a little bit more egalitarian, I have to say. So when the graduands come across the stage, you'll come over, I will cap you. At the moment I cap you, we're officially conferring the degree to you as you become Strathclyde graduates, and then you'll go and pick up your parchment and onwards. So please enjoy that moment. These days are always wonderful. It's the highlight of the academic calendar, but occasionally we have a particularly enjoyable additional element to these graduations. And today is one of those days where we celebrate the outstanding personal and professional achievements of individuals that we have some association with. And today is one of those days because we have a guest with us today. That's Lauren Maybury, who is sitting immediately to my left, about whom you'll hear much more from Lisanne Bonner. And Lauren is a Strathclyde graduate, and it's great to have her here today to have some reflections, as well as receive what we want to do is honour her achievements. Now, Strathclyde is what's referred to as an age-friendly university. Some 10 years ago, we, with Arizona State University and one of the universities in Dublin, we set up something that saw us engage with primary school children all the way through to learning in later life. And also on the stage with me today is a great friend and colleague of Strathclyde, and that's Dr. Ronald Crawford, who's sitting second from my left, who is a sprightly and 85-year-old young graduate of Strathclyde University, because he'll be receiving a D Lit for some outstanding work he's done in history. And Ronald was a long-standing senior member of our professional services staff. So we've got much to celebrate today, most importantly for our graduates and for the families, but for our special guests that are here on the stage. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, one last thing. You're here to support your family members. So I'm happy that you let them know that you're in the hall when they come across the stage, within reason. Well, I better not tell you what's been happening over the past week, but certainly within reason, we'll just about cover it. So you're here to enjoy yourselves, and please do so. And with that, I will declare this congregation formally open, and I'll invite Lisanne Bonner to introduce our honorary graduate. Please enjoy the afternoon. Thank you very much.
Principal and Vice-Chancellor, I have the honour and pleasure to present to you Miss Lauren Maybury, a singer-songwriter, musician, activist and philanthropist. Lauren's musical journey started in her rural Stirlingshire home, where she listened through her headphones to favourite artists such as Tori Amos and Fiona Apple. By the age of 15, Lauren had joined her first band, playing drums and percussion, and she continued to play in bands while a student here at Strathclyde. Lauren took on the role as lead singer when she and fellow musicians Ian Cook and Martin Docherty formed the band Churches in 2011. The band went on to release 4 UK top 10 studio albums and they were awarded Best Song by a UK artist for How Not to Drown at the 2022 NME Awards. They have played world-famous concert venues and festivals such as Coachella and Glastonbury, and in Glasgow, our very own much-loved Glasgow Barrowlands. The band have enjoyed plaudits from fans, musical peers and critics. Yet, in an industry still dominated by men, Lauren has been subject to sexist attitudes and online abuse that has included death threats and other threats of violence. Lauren has used her public platform to reject the too often held position that online misogynistic abuse comes with the territory of being in a band, or in general, being a woman in the public eye. On being asked in an interview for her favourite quote, Lauren quoted the phenomenal African-American poet Maya Angelou, who said, "You may not control all the events that happen to you, but you can decide not to be reduced by them." She also quoted Gandhi, "Be the change that you wish to see in the world." I believe we see the embodiment of both these quotes in Lauren Maybury's activism and philanthropism. From being co-founder to Glasgow Women's Collective that's promoted and provided support to female and non-binary musicians, to providing much needed funding along with her church's bandmates for Glasgow Girls Rock, which is an organisation that runs a summer school for girls and non-binary young people to come together to learn how to make music and be creative. She has also been patron of Glasgow and Clyde Rape Crisis. Recently, as part of BBC Radio 6's Mental Wellbeing season, Lauren took part in the Change the Tune campaign, an initiative to raise awareness of the impact that online abuse has on the lives of artists. Lauren's generosity and kindness was evident too in 2020, when during the COVID-19 pandemic, graduations such as this one were suspended. Lauren took the time then to join an online celebration of the achievements of the graduating LLB student cohort in June 2020. The students and the staff were delighted, and it's something that we still hear about within the university. Now, that might seem like a small thing, but I think you will agree it's another example of Lauren's kindness and decency. But back to Lauren as an artist. The best artists, of course, evolve and develop their art. 10 years after the release of Church's debut album, The Bones of What You Believe, Lauren embarked on the solo era of her musical career, giving her the space to explore her creativity as a fully embodied female artist. So far, she has released 3 singles that each explore different themes of her own experience of sexuality and gender, such as the song Changing Shapes, which explores the experience of adopting different personas to conform to notions of how women should behave. Lauren has been playing this solo work live with an all-female and non-binary band in venues across North America, the UK and Europe. Speaking about her younger self, Lauren has spoken about how she imagined herself in the role of backing singer rather than the artist leading up front. We see in Lauren Maybury's creative achievements in music, both as band member and solo artist, and in her efforts to challenge misogyny and promote gender equality. A girl, a woman who has come to the front. Following from one of her musical heroes, Kathleen Hanna, Lauren Maybury is the ultimate rebel girl. It is with great pleasure, therefore, Principal and Vice-Chancellor, that with the authority of Senate, I ask you to confer upon Lauren Maybury the degree of Doctor of the University Honoris Causa.
Lauren, I create you Doctor of the University Honoris Causa. We're enormously proud of what you've achieved since you graduated here from the University of Strathclyde. You have reset the heather alight in terms of your musical prowess, but you're making just as big an impact in terms of social progression and an impact in society. Many congratulations and welcome back to Strathclyde.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm a little bit too wee for the podium. Thank you to the university for giving me this wonderful honour, and thank you all for letting me be a part of your special day. I have a little bit of a riddy from standing there listening to people say nice things about me. But Strathclyde is a really important part of the church's lore, because Ian and Martin from the band also went here, so it's very ingrained in the cake of churches, I guess. And I just want to say congratulations to all the graduands, soon-to-be graduates, because this is a hard thing you did, especially in the last few years, and you should be really proud of that. I have some amazing memories of being at Strathclyde. The first thing I remember is just meeting so many friends who are still in my life now, and I feel like when I was 18, I didn't know that my life would look like this, so I'm very lucky to have people here with me still that remember me when I over-straightened my hair and I wore 2 different coloured Converse because I really was desperately wanting to be edgy and I wanted people to ask me if I was in a band so much, so deeply. And I had good friends that I could photocopy the notes from when I left early to go do gigs to about 10 people. So thank you, James Devaney, and sorry, Therese O'Donnell, for that. But the other thing I remember when I think back on that time period of my life is just how worried I was all the time. Like, I studied a lot, but I worried a lot. I worried more. And I guess now it looks like I succeeded at a bunch of stuff because I tricked them into giving me a doctorate that I didn't do any work for. But I also failed at loads of stuff. Professionally and personally, I made good decisions and I made bad decisions. And a lot of the time it felt like the world was going to end when you made those bad decisions. But now I kind of think that failing at stuff is such a big part of figuring out how to be good at stuff. And without a lot of the big mistakes I made, I wouldn't be where I am now. It would go far beyond my allotted time to tell you all the bands I auditioned for and didn't get into, or all the jobs I applied for that I didn't get, including but not limited to McDonald's on Sucky Hall Street, Pret on Sucky Hall Street, HMV, H&M, USC, King Tut's, Sleazy's, basically any music venues, ITV, STV, Channel 4, BBC, all outlets of BBC, did not want it. And all those things felt really awful at the time, but it all, you know, you're going to have some ups and some downs, and you're going to be fine, is what I have learned. So, yeah, enjoy this day. I hope you're really proud of what you did, and have a great time. Keep working hard, but don't work too hard, because you'll just miss it if you don't keep your eyes open. So thank you very much for this. Have a great day, and good luck.
Principal and Vice-Chancellor, in the name of the University and by the authority of Senate, I present to you these students. For the degree of Doctor of Letters for his work on 18th century Scottish history, Ronald Lindsay Crawford. For the degree of Doctor of Philosophy for Research in English, Ali Ryland. For Research in French, Pauline Lucienne Colette Coombe Lang. For Research in History, Niamh Eileen Coffey. Lauren MacDougall. Rory Mark Stride. For research in journalism, media and communication, Natalie Grant Bellow. In gender studies, Emma Ann Flynn. Sam Tabbitt. For the degree of Master of Letters in Digital Journalism, Olivia Francesca Adam. In Media and Communication, Ifra Khalid. Otisope Olasei Adushaye. Isha Ranjit Vadneri. For the degree of Bachelor of Arts in English, Casey Brown. Rihanna McGee. In English and Creative Writing, Caitlin Julie Agnew. Lauren Black. Caitlin Jane Bryce Davis. Rebecca Jamie Chiddick. Elliot Cruikshanks. Olivia May Curry. Victoria DeLily. Jack Flower. Elizabeth Hannah McKellar. Sarah Louise Martin. Karen McCafferty. Kirsty McCaffrey. Eloise Jinx Murray. Heather Amy Needham. Andrew James Pettigrew. Jodie Sarah Pollock. Erin Jean Robertson. Sinead Slavin. Evie Stewart. Rebecca Lily White. Jennifer Sophia Wilson. In English and Creative Writing and Education, Lewis John Gray. In English and Creative Writing and History, Sophie Farrell. Bernie Mackay. Sophie Moore. Amber Louise Thornborough. In English and Creative Writing and Journalism, Media and Communication, Molly Hamilton Bigger. Jamie Helen Lilius Campbell. Finley Davidson. Filcia Tabitha Gordon. Ciara Elizabeth McMahon. Rebecca Catherine McMahon. Niamh Carol McCravey. Max Thomas Queen. In English and Creative Writing and Journalism, Media and Communication with International Study, Georgia Lynn Dennis. Hannah MacDonald. In English and Creative Writing and Spanish with International Study, Thomas Drew. In English and Creative Writing with Politics and International Relations, Daniel Phelps. In English and Creative Writing with Psychology, Tiana Catherine Chen. In English and Creative Writing with Spanish with International Study, Gordon Andrew David Todd. In English and Education, Casey Deary. Kyla McLaurin. In English and French with International Study, Ciara Elizabeth Meehan. In English and Journalism, Media and Communication, Amy Gallagher. Amy Harton Hughes. Niamh Mary McLaughlin. In English and Law, Kerr Mark Devine. In English and Politics and International Relations, Tyler James Gibson. Callum Alexander McLennan. In English with International Study, Lexi Jade Ashcroft. Sophie Ruth Neely. Thomas Muir Porter. In English with Psychology, Rachel Janet Donnelly. In French and Journalism, Media and Communication with International Study, Miriam Mathy. In French and Spanish with International Study, Annie Ailsa Mackay Campbell. Robert Graham. Mary MacDonald. Lauren Elizabeth Maureen McAlpine. Danielle Jade Mitchell. Louise Wilson. Neve Annie Woods. Freya Wharton. In Hospitality and Tourism Management and French with International Study, Eva Carey Mertens. In Marketing and French with International Study, Alice Astrid Green. In History, Rory Young Anderson. Pamela Margaret Arnicellum. Andrew Boyd. Tegan Boyd. Louise Bradley. Jasmine Brown. Christy Jade Dalgleish. Craig Robert Davidson. Chloe Devlin. Ailey Ann Dunlop. Adam Edward William Fremantle. Lucy Jeffrey. Paul Martin Kazubski. Nicola Cara Kennedy. Aidan Kirkwood. Devon Koroma. David Little. Adam Peter Lyle. Andrew Marshall. Nicole Ann Michaela McCann. Emma McElwraith. Craig Gordon Douglas McKeown. Sally McNair. Niamh Murray. Turan Chan Oyar. Charlotte Patterson. Rachel Quigley. Michael Robinson. Jamie Ross. Shannon Sterling. In History and English, Laura Ann Sutherland. In History and English and Creative Writing, Kirsty Niamh McCreer. In History and French with International Study, Hannah Bryson. Caitlin Lauren Miller. In History and Journalism, Media and Communication, Finlay Hamilton. Charlotte Sophie Lewis. In History and Politics and International Relations, Luca Alessandri. Louise Jane Anderson. Kirsty Louise Fraser. Isla Louise MacLeod. Christian Alexander Matheson. Callum Murphy. In History and Politics and International Relations with International Study, Rose Robertson Scotland. In History and Social Policy, Aidan Campbell. Darcy Maureen Grace Castles. Eve Crawshaw. Caitlin MacDonald. In History with Education, Lewis Alexander Beattie. In History with English, Brianna Shaw. Leanne Todd. In History with International Study, Sarah McDermott. In History with Politics and International Relations, Rachel Jane Anderson. Rachel Claire Gallagher. Karen Laurie. Victoria Heather Morrison. Francesca Caroline Paciti. Matthew Price. In History with Politics and International Relations with International Study, Rachel Symington. In History with Psychology, Dominic Cameron Pollock. In History with Social Policy, Cora Grigor. In Humanities and Social Sciences, Ethan Hendry. Rebecca Hopkins. Niamh Sarah Martin. Adam McGowan. Leonie Laura Elizabeth McKeown. Rebecca Patricia Iris Smith. In Journalism, Media and Communication and Economics, Brandon Atkinson. In Journalism, Media and Communication and Economics with International Study, Caleb Edom Mukhtari Akbo Young. In Journalism, Media and Communication and English, Alexander Robert Chisholm. Jack Falls. Lauren Jane Hunter. Iona Jane McCaskill. Aisha Tareem. In Journalism, Media and Communication and English and Creative Writing, Saoirse Jane Donnelly. Rory Martin Lamberton. Sarah Anya McGeechy. In Journalism, Media and Communication and French with International Study, Rachel Leona Cronin. Sophia Victoria Heilman. Gray McCormack. In Journalism, Media and Communication and History, Anna Joan McQueen. Harry George McIlvenny. In Journalism, Media and Communication and History with International Study, Eva Hall. In Journalism, Media and Communication and Human Resource Management, Julia Ozan. In Journalism, Media and Communication and Law, Lydia Ruth Stockdale. In Journalism, Media and Communication and Politics and International Relations, Nicola Craig. Mattia Log Liverod. Daniel Ian Graham Munro. In Journalism, Media and Communication and Politics and International Relations with International Study, Curtis McLeary. In Journalism, Media and Communication and Psychology, Emily Victoria Scales. Dervla Nuala Turner. In Journalism, Media and Communication and Psychology with International Study, Callum McLean. In Journalism, Media and Communication and Social Policy, Thea Rose Lennox. Scarlett Rose Lewis Reid. In Journalism, Media and Communication and Spanish with International Study, Amy Sharon McCormack. In Hospitality and Tourism Management and Spanish with International Study, Elise Holly Wiper. In Marketing and Spanish with International Study, Sarah Kate Green. In Spanish and Economics with International Study, Owen William Swift. In Spanish and French with International Study, Lindsay Brown. Leah Clark. Anna Mirren McCallum. Molly Richley. Leah Anna Faye Vollum. Natasha Lauren Watt. Rachel Willis. Rachel Young. In Spanish and Journalism, Media and Communication with International Study, Alexander Ian Finlay. Jan Michael Barrios Ganasias. In Spanish and Marketing with International Study, Adele Taylor. In Spanish and Politics and International Relations with International Study, Ewan Andrew Moore. In Spanish and Psychology with International Study, Katie Ross.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, let's give the class of 2024 a big round of applause. So, once again, ladies and gentlemen, and now to you, our wonderful Strathclyde graduates, let me reiterate our very warm welcome to this fantastic ceremony, a day that none of you will forget, because it marks the successful conclusion of many years of hard work, and now you've graduated in front of your families, your friends, supporters, and of course your classmates. And today we welcome visitors from across Scotland, throughout the UK, and of course from a wonderful international community too. We're delighted to see all of you here to join in today's celebrations. Importantly, your university, Strathclyde, is an institution where freedom of thought is valued and encouraged. We're a place that seeks to be both tolerant and inclusive, and where people of diverse national, cultural and social backgrounds come together here for a great education and a shared student experience. In Strathclyde, we all benefit from having students and staff from over 130 different countries, because ours is a socially progressive community, one that seeks to be an exemplar for society, because we're plural, multicultural, and we try to be enlightened. It's our responsibility, and Strathclyde graduates today, it's your responsibility to continue to challenge unacceptable practices, including by those in power, perhaps particularly by those in power, by using reason and by exemplifying the very best features of modern society. And we do this in the knowledge that we're experiencing yet again war in Europe because of Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine, and we're witnessing the horror of the conflict in the Middle East and the humanitarian disaster in Gaza. And there's never been a greater need for a new generation of leaders that are professional, ethical and empathetic, with a commitment to tolerance and a sense of purpose, namely Strathclyde graduates, like every one of you graduating today. And remember, democracy is precious. You're graduating at a time of great political upheaval and uncertainty across the globe. And this year, elections are taking place in 65 countries. And around 2 billion people, but a quarter of the world's population, are eligible to vote, including, of course, here in the UK. So I strongly encourage you to make your opinions and your voice count through the ballot box. But of course, most importantly, we're here today to acknowledge your hard work and the fruits of your labours and all the knowledge that you've built up. And of course, you've now successfully completed your degree courses, because these will now be the passport for you to make a full contribution to the career that you choose and to society at large, in spite of the flux and uncertainty that we are currently facing. And you're graduating in a very special year for Strathclyde. Whilst we're over 200 years old, this is our Diamond Jubilee anniversary year, celebrating 60 years since the award of a Royal Charter by the late Queen Elizabeth II, which conferred university status on our institution. And the mace, which is here on the stage before you, is a sign of the royal assent of us awarding your degrees under the auspices of our university status. And that Royal Charter was the Royal College of Science and Technology evolving to become the University of Strathclyde, the first university to be established in Scotland for almost 400 years, and Britain's first technological university with 4 great faculties: Humanities and Social Sciences, the Business School, Science and Engineering. And we are the 8th oldest university in the UK. And of history, we'll look at more recent times. You'll recall that just about 2.5 years ago, Glasgow had the privilege in November of 2021 to welcome the world to our city through COP26. And of course, we showed Glasgow to the world. It was the summit of world leaders that came together to agree measures to minimise global warming and climate change. And that challenge still persists. And COP26 saw Strathclyde positioning itself as not only a welcoming part of the Glasgow ecosystem, but also to present ourselves to those that came here to present, talk and engage. I had the privilege of spending time with John Kerry, the Special Presidential Climate Envoy, Michael Bloomberg, a fellow electrical engineer, but known better for his business successes, and being Mayor of New York. And the highlight of that time was when the former US President Barack Obama came here to our campus to engage with young people and activists about the critical role that your generation can and will play in tackling climate change, many of the problems that my generation have given you to face. Now, Mr. Obama came here under secrecy because of the requirement for security, but through the powers of social media, that didn't last too long, because when he left, there were many hundreds of people waiting to say goodbye to him. And we spent time with him. He enlightened those that he met. But as he left our learning and teaching building, heading to one of his vehicles, he turned round and said two important words, and that was, get active. And that's what I want to say to you today, Strathclyde graduates before us and here on the stage. Get active. Active in your careers, whatever you choose to do personally and professionally, and please go ahead and apply yourselves. That hard work ethic is important. You're highly accomplished, you're smart, you've got ambition, but add that magic element of hard work and application. And I was brought up here in this city of Glasgow, just on the other side of the Clyde, in a sunny hamlet called Govan. And the town's historical motto is nihil sine labore, or nothing without hard work. And I try to embrace that ethos every day as I lead this wonderful institution. And I would recommend you take that similar approach in your future careers, because you've now become Strathclyde alumni. You are the latest of the university's torchbearers, just like those from many generations that have gone before you. And with all that you've successfully come through, I'm sure you would agree with me that you couldn't have done this without the backing, support and encouragement of the community of friends and family that are in the room with you today. And it's fitting that we acknowledge their part in the successful completion of your university studies. Our graduates, and indeed the university at large, owe them an enormous debt of gratitude. So, graduates, staff, please join me in saying a big thank you to these wonderful people in the hall. Thank you. And for our outstanding academic staff and support staff, this is a very important day, because ultimately your success is their reward, because we've worked hard to provide you with a high-quality education and a first-class student experience for all of our students, regardless of background. So, graduates, those in the hall, please say with me a big thank you to these academic staff. Given that we're celebrating the achievements of the students of the School of Humanities, it's worthwhile having a little episode of history about your institution. It's important that you remember that we were established in 1796, so we're some 228 years old, although I still like to think of us as a 200-year-old start-up organisation, being entrepreneurial, have passion, focus and drive to deliver value, and have that same sense of excitement at the time of our establishment. And throughout our history, the University of Strathclyde has remained to our founding principles, and I quote in the language of the day, we were for the benefit of all mankind, having been the only higher education institution to be established in Scotland during the time of the Enlightenment, named as Anderson's Institution. And we continue, of course, to drive our university strategy in that same exciting spirit, making it wholly relevant now to the 21st century. Our founder, Professor John Anderson, a physicist or natural philosopher, as he would have been called in those days, with a strong engineering capability too, has strong links with Benjamin Franklin, the American inventor and academic. And of course, Franklin was one of the founders of the University of Pennsylvania in 1751 under the motto of useful knowledge. And this inspired our founder, along with the environment within which he was pursuing his career during the time of the Enlightenment, and that notion of useful learning inspired him that through his will he wished a place to be established under that heading of useful learning. And never has that philosophy been so relevant since our establishment some 200 years or so ago, known by all of our staff and students, and please carry that with you today. Strathclyde is about useful learning. For example, across the campus, in many of the buildings that you'll have passed today on the way to the Barony Hall, you should know that our academics and our students are developing drugs to diagnose and fight disease. For example, we have many drugs on clinical trials in the areas of cancer diagnostics and treatment, kidney disease, infection management, inflammatory diseases. We're producing energy technologies and policy solutions to tackle climate change and to establish a low-carbon economy. In humanities, you're identifying critical transition paths that makes this relevant to society and for the benefit of all those that live in cities and across our nation. We're also revolutionising global manufacturing, and Strathclyde's at the spearhead of capturing again the manufacturing industry that left this country all too easily 50 or so years ago. We're making things again, and that global revolution of the Industry 4.0 is through the use of AI, robotics, automation, data science. And our students, we're very proud of them, they continue their work in low-income countries, establishing clean water and power supplies, deploying healthcare systems in remote communities, and introducing new telecommunications infrastructure, transferring prosthetic limb and bioengineering technologies to those in need. And very importantly, and where the Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences make a significant contribution, is to inform public policy, whether it's economic strategy or education, health, energy or innovation. And our staff in the Technology and Innovation Centre, or the TIC building down in George Street, that was a step change investment for us because it recaptured our essence as the UK's first technological university, reminding us of another American, Thomas Edison, who called his technology teams in his labs his inventions factory. Well, the TIC building has become Scotland's innovations factory. And in this city, we now have some 1,600 companies, and the main crowded in by access to our students, our research capability, and the ecosystem that we've created. And you're now in the epicentre here in the Barony Hall of the Glasgow City Innovation District, the first innovation district in Scotland, working on medtech, fintech, quantum technologies, 5 and 6G communications, the ubiquitous AI and space technology, again underpinned by your faculty, giving us solutions around law, humanities, the regulation that needs to sit behind it, and that connection to society. And as well as the research investments we attract, we've attracted much philanthropic support. For example, one of our double graduates, Charles Wang, a couple of years ago contacted us and donated £50 million to Strathclyde to drive our innovation and entrepreneurship activity. So much so, for those of you that are seasoned Strathclyders, you may remember our Strathclyde Student Union building. It's receiving £30 million investment, transforming it into a digital innovation and technology entrepreneurship hub, as well as establishing an international business institute named for Charles Wang's supervisor, Professor Stephen Young. And now that we're in the holiday period, and you'll be flying off from Glasgow Airport to sunnier, certainly sunnier climes than we've had today, you'll see in the northeast part of the runway some new buildings that have sprung up. There's a large anonymous building that will soon have some signage on it with a large purple serrated roof, and another building beside it. That's the National Manufacturing Institute for Scotland that we own and operate on behalf of the nation. And next to it, the Medicines Manufacturing Innovation Centre, revolutionising how we make important things like vaccines and oligonucleotides. You may have heard of mRNA, which was a key part of the vaccines that we used to protect ourselves during COVID. And Strathclyde has established, with the Scottish and UK government, the Advanced Manufacturing District out there. So between the Glasgow City Innovation District and what's going on at the airport, we're driving about £2 billion worth of gross value add into the Scottish economy, creating almost 10,000 jobs. That is useful learning, and that commits us to supporting business and industry to be competitive and productive, but it's about inclusive economic growth. It's creating jobs for those in some of the most challenged communities here in Scotland, get part of that 21st century industry growth. But most importantly, for those of you in the hall today, we provide people with the opportunity to transform their lives and the lives of their families. As I mentioned earlier, we still attract many first-generation students here to Strathclyde, like me, like many of my staff here on the stage, who stand on the shoulders of our families and the ambitions of our mothers and fathers and our teachers. And that's why, over the past few years, we've had a terrific sequence of external independent recognition of not only what we do, but how we do it. We're still the only UK university to have won the UK University of the Year twice at the UK Times Higher Education Awards. We've been named Entrepreneurial University of the Year and the Sunday Times Scottish University of the Year. This year, we're currently the Scottish University of the Year in a new Daily Mail National League table. And we were runner-up just to Imperial College as the UK University of the Year. Not that I'm competitive or anything, but we'll see how we go on next year. Alistair McCall, who compiled those rankings and who compiled the Times and Sunday Times rankings over the past 15 years, said of us when this award was made, and I quote, that Strathclyde is the epitome of a progressive 21st century university, seeking to shape and change society for the better through the pursuit of educational excellence and social change, and still, he said, a place of useful learning, just as it set out to be 200 years ago. And this time last year in Barcelona, Strathclyde was named the European Entrepreneurial University of the Year, and that suited us. And just last month, and I know this is important, I have the benefit of speaking often to our student leadership as we talk about sustainability and our contribution to society. The Times Higher looked at 2,000 universities, and Strathclyde was placed in their joint 25th. And I wouldn't normally celebrate being 25th in any race, but across that cohort of international universities, they recognised their significant contribution as an institution to addressing the delivery of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals over the remainder of this decade and looking beyond that to see what we can do. So, your institution continues to have a distinctive and disproportionate impact on society, on the economy, and the opportunities for people to have their education. We create value and impact, and this idea of universities as a cost to society is wrong, because the Scottish Government puts about £1.2 billion into the sector, and in return, our sector delivers over £10 billion worth of value into the economy. So we're an investment, not a cost. And I have to say the achievements of the Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences, in particular the School of Humanities that we're celebrating today, gives me great cause for optimism. And I have a very lengthy list of achievements, and I'll just pick out a few highlights so you can join me in celebrating and acknowledging the achievements here. So, for example, congratulations are due to Professor Laura Kelly for being awarded the British Association for Irish Studies Book Prize for her book entitled Contraception and Modern Ireland, A Social History, from 1922 to 92. And Laura attended that prize giving at the Irish Embassy in London just last month. And that book will be important for anyone interested in Irish social history, in women's history, and in the history of sexuality. This month, we celebrated 60 years of English at Strathclyde with a public event at which we welcomed back a number of our excellent alumni to talk about their poetry collections and award-winning fiction. And speakers included Callum McSorley, who had won the prestigious McIlvany Prize for the Best Scottish Crime Novel of the Year just last year. Journalism, Media and Communication has established now a link with the world-leading journalism school at Penn State University in the United States of America, and staff and students are now working together on the US and UK elections, with trips planned across the Atlantic later this year, providing opportunities not only for developing research, but for our students to develop their publication profiles with national press organisations. Professor Chernjeet Mann and David Murphy, who are on the stage with us today, are working on an Arts and Humanities Research Council funded project involving collaboration with various heritage partners here in Scotland on how to decolonise their collections and promote greater diversity. And it includes a number of workshops bringing together the Lillian Thuram Foundation for Education Against Racism and the staff at Kelvin Grove Museum. And just yesterday, we were delighted and proud to have Lillian Thuram with us when David Murphy introduced him to us as another honorary graduate. And finally, the Bring Your Own Hammer is a new project led by Niall Whelan and Dr. Richard McMahon, in which historians and composers, appropriately enough for today's honorary graduate, to collaborate to create new and original song cycles based on historical sources. And the first album from the project, entitled My Grief on the Sea, is rooted in the history of 19th century Ireland and the Irish diaspora, involving some of Ireland's and Britain's finest songwriters, and much more. So please see this and all that you know your colleagues are doing as important context in which you receive your degrees today. You're part of a university that puts students at the very heart of all that we do, because we value education and research, but most importantly, we value the routes to making an impact to society. And we're an international institution, and the world's best universities both compete and collaborate, and indeed they contribute on the world stage, and we're no different. And we have a number of international strategic partners, some of them household names that you will recognise in North America. That includes Stanford, MIT and New York universities, with strong partnerships with the University of Southern California and Waterloo University in Canada. In China, in spite of the geopolitical headwinds, to use a euphemism, we work closely with Peking and Tsinghua universities, #1 and #2 in that country, on sustainability, renewables and decarbonisation, along with the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology. And we maintain strong links in Europe, in spite of the challenges and disruption that Brexit brought us. The soft power of universities really matters. This place is over 200 years old. We have ancients in Scotland that are 500 and 600 years old. In spite of the political flux that we face, we form part of the fabric of society, and maintaining that student and staff mobility, the exchange of ideas, the European ideal still remains, and universities can still maintain that link. And just last month, we announced exciting initiatives to expand our teaching and research in Bahrain and Saudi Arabia. In Saudi Arabia, that choice was to work with the Princess Noura University, the biggest all-women university in the world with some 35,000 students. And we're focused there on helping to drive social change by upskilling women there in engineering and technology, in science, in business and the humanities. And all of you, I'm sure, are aware that you've benefited from being part of an international institution. It's helping you leave here with the skills necessary for your career, for Scotland and for other parts of the world where you will pursue your interests. And you've been exposed, remember, to the richness and value of different cultures and tradition, making it important for you to leave here today understanding your obligations as global citizens. And I'll conclude by referring to the term I used earlier, being socially progressive. That's important within the institution, but also in terms of how we keep our doors wide open. We remain the leading research-intensive university in Scotland for widening participation to education. Almost 1,300 young people from the two most challenged quintiles in the Scottish economy came here this year, within which over 500 come from the most challenged communities in Scotland. And in that same period, we've achieved the joint 5th highest entrance qualifications in the UK, making a nonsense of the statement that widening access dilutes the educational quality. I wouldn't have that. For example, just last month, you are part of the formal graduation processes. About a month ago, we had our young Strathclyder graduations. It was 500 over 2 days, 510 to 12-year-olds. It was wonderful. In their capes, with their mortarboards. And if I could have bottled energy in the room, I'd have new sustainable energy that will take us through to the end of the century, bounding across the stage, having been recognised for the work that they've done in night classes and extracurricular work, all excited about education. Occasionally I missed them because they were running too fast as they ran underneath me. But as my colleagues know, which I often repeat, I love those ceremonies because it's one of the few ceremonies where I get to look tall, which is fantastic. But they were here, and their mothers and fathers and grannies and grandpas and teachers were in the room. And whilst I wasn't giving them such a long-winded speech last month, I was speaking to their mothers and fathers, most of whom had never crossed the threshold of a university, to remind them that this place is for them. If their children have the aptitude, the ambition and the capability to study and get their degrees here, this is the place for them. And so it is, as we have a very large number of those families that I recognise as my own, coming through here and then getting on with their careers. So finally, if I characterise your place, Strathclyde, in 2024, I would describe us again as being distinctive and having ambition, focus and momentum. And we have to continue our work with the agility and commitment so necessary to absorb the continuing challenges in our sector, as well as the political and economic upheaval that we're all facing. It's a great privilege for me to lead this fantastic institution, with the great support I have from my executive team, from our academic colleagues, professional services and support teams. And I truly believe If John Anderson were witnessing this ceremony today, he'd recognise what we're doing as the realisation of what he sought to achieve over 200 years ago, namely useful learning. So to all of you in the hall, I have no doubt that the class of 2024 will be a vintage year. You have the ability to change things and make a difference. You've shown great resilience over the recent years, great application, and now you're successful. And hopefully you've had some fun along the way. We're all very proud of you. And as you leave the hall today, be aware that you're joining a community of over 210,000 Strathclyders out in the world. I travel a lot for this institution. There is not a place in the world, and I don't exaggerate, where I find Strathclyders in positions of authority and influence, and even in more junior roles, making a difference through their application. So whatever you do with your degree, and wherever you choose to pursue your degree and your career, truly useful learning means that you apply your knowledge for the benefits of others, make a positive impact for yourselves and the communities that you belong to. Please respect diversity and value freedom of expression and thought, and reach conclusions and resolve disputes through the application of reason and tolerance. These characterise the core values of your university. So we're all here to mark the great achievements of those that have been awarded their degrees. So on behalf of the University of Strathclyde, I'd like to extend my sincere congratulations to each and every one of you and wish you every success in your future careers. Please do stay in touch with us and let us know about your progress. We're truly interested. So well done again, and enjoy the rest of this special day. Great. The sun has broken out, shining upon our graduates. That's a good sign. I've had the ancient signal of the thumbs up from the back of the hall, which means the weather is indeed good. So we're going to bring the ceremony to a close just in a moment. We will be processing down the aisle. Let the stage party go, and then please join us. There's going to be a reception over at the Learning and Teaching Building with refreshments and good company to enjoy for the rest of the day. So I hope you've enjoyed today's ceremonies as much as we have. As always, it's the highlight in the calendar. I will now ask you to be upstanding. And I will now formally declare this congregation closed. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. That was wonderful.